I remember that day like it was yesterday, even though it's been a few months now. I'm Dr. Aisha Thompson, 42 years old, and I've spent my entire adult life in medicine, fighting tooth and nail to get where I am. As a Black woman in surgery, I've dealt with everything from subtle comments about my hair to outright questions about whether I really went to medical school. I've worked double shifts, taken on the toughest cases, and proven myself over and over just to be seen as equal. But that afternoon in the emergency room at City General Hospital, everything boiled over in a way I never expected. Welcome to Melina's Stories. I share new life stories here every day, and I'd really appreciate it if you hit subscribe and liked my video. Drop a comment down below telling me where you're watching from and what time it is for you, right? Now, I read every single comment, and it helps me to know I'm not alone in this. The ER was chaotic as usual, with beeps from monitors filling the air and nurses rushing between beds. I was responding to a trauma activation that had just come in when I heard a commotion near the intake desk. A woman was yelling, her voice cutting through the noise like a siren. She was white, in her mid-50s, dressed in a designer coat that looked out of place among the scrubs and gurneys. Her son, a teenager maybe 16 years old, was being wheeled in on a stretcher, pale and unconscious after what I later learned was a bad car accident. Internal bleeding, possible ruptured spleen, the kind of case that needs quick action. I stepped over to assess him right away, checking his vitals and calling for imaging. His hemodynamics were borderline stable after we started IV fluids, and a quick, fast ultrasound suggested abdominal bleeding. But we needed confirmation before deciding on the OR. That's when the woman turned on me. "What the hell are you doing? Get away from my son!" she screamed, her face twisted in anger. I looked up, keeping my voice calm. "Ma'am, I'm Dr. Thompson. I'm the surgeon on call. We need to get him stabilized." She didn't listen. Instead, she shoved past a nurse, slipping through a gap in the curtained bay during the chaos of the overwhelmed triage area, and got right in my face. "You're not a doctor. You're just a nurse, and a lazy one at that. My boy needs real help, not some affirmative action hire messing things up." Her words hit me like a punch. But I've heard variations before, the assumption that because I'm Black, I couldn't possibly be the one in charge. I tried to explain again. "I assure you, I'm qualified. Let's focus on your son." But she wasn't having it. Her eyes narrowed, and before I could step back, her hand flew out and slapped me hard across the cheek. The sound echoed in the room, sharp and stinging. My face burned, not just from the impact, but from the sheer shock of it. People around us froze, nurses, patients, even a security guard who was nearby. Gasps filled the air, but no one moved to intervene right away. I stood there, my hand instinctively going to my cheek, feeling the heat rising under my skin. "Who do you think you are?" she spat, pointing a finger at me. "You people always think you can just waltz in and act like you know everything. Get me a real doctor now." I could feel tears pricking at my eyes, but I blinked them back. Years of this. The microaggressions, the doubts, the extra hours to prove I'm not just anything. And now this physical assault in front of everyone. My heart pounded, a mix of rage and humiliation churning inside me. A nurse finally stepped in, trying to pull her away. "Ma'am, please calm down. Dr. Thompson is one of our best." But the woman, I later found out her name was Karen Wilkins, just laughed bitterly. "Best? Look at her. She's probably here on some quota. My son is dying and you're defending this?" She turned to the crowd, raising her voice. "Someone help me. This incompetent woman is going to kill my boy." I wanted to scream back, to tell her about my degrees from Johns Hopkins, my years of residency, the lives I've saved. But I didn't. Instead, I focused on the boy, directing the team to prep him for scans. "We need a CT stat," I said, my voice steady even though my hands were shaking slightly. Inside, though, that slap had cracked something open. The pain wasn't just physical. It was the weight of every time I'd been overlooked, every promotion I'd had to fight twice as hard for, every patient who'd requested a different doctor. Security arrived then, 2 guards in uniform, but they hesitated briefly, gauging the threat level in the packed ER before stepping in. "Ma'am, step back now. That's assault and you need to stop," one said firmly to Karen. She crossed her arms, smirking. "Oh, I can, and I did. Now fire her or I'll sue this whole place." I met her eyes, seeing the entitlement there. The assumption that she could treat me like dirt and get away with it. The onlookers whispered, some pulling out phones to record, but a nurse quickly intervened, reminding them of hospital privacy policies to avoid violating patient confidentiality. That isolation hit hard. After all I'd given to this hospital, I was standing alone. As they wheeled her son away, I stepped back, my cheek still throbbing. Per protocol following an assault on staff, Employee Health took photos and I filed an incident report before I was reassigned. I was temporarily reassigned to another case, but I ensured the team had my initial orders for the boy. The humiliation burned deep, making me question if all my hard work was worth it. But even then, a quiet resolve started forming. I wouldn't let this break me. I'd maintain my professionalism, but this wasn't over. Not by a long shot. The rest of the shift blurred after that. I finished my rounds, ignoring the stares from colleagues who had seen it all. At home that night, alone in my apartment, I looked in the mirror at the red mark on my face. It would fade, but the scar inside wouldn't. I'd endured years of racial slights. Comments like, "You speak so well," or being mistaken for support staff despite my white coat. I'd overworked myself, skipping vacations, to prove my worth in a field where Black women like me are rare and often dismissed. This slap was the culmination, pushing me to my emotional limit, but it also lit a fire. I knew I had to handle this carefully, but I wouldn't just take it lying down. After the slap, the ER seemed to hold its breath for a moment, but then everything exploded into motion again. The monitors kept beeping, nurses shouted orders, and Karen Wilkins stood there, her face flushed with rage, pointing at me like I was some kind of criminal. I could feel the sting on my cheek spreading, but I pushed it down, focusing on the boy. His name was Tyler, I learned later from the intake forms. His blood pressure was dropping and we had to act fast. "Keep those fluids running," I told the team, my voice steady despite the chaos in my head. But Karen wasn't done. She spun toward the security guards who were already intervening. "You saw what she did? She's pretending to be a doctor, and now my son's life is at risk because of her incompetence," Karen yelled, her voice rising to a shrill pitch that made heads turn from every corner of the room. The guards exchanged glances. One of them, a tall guy named Mike who'd been at the hospital for years, stepped forward but didn't grab her. "Ma'am, we need you to calm down and step back," he said, his tone firm but careful, like he was dealing with a lit fuse. Karen ignored him, turning to the nurses and other staff gathering around. "Fire her right now. She's just a Black nurse trying to play God. Get me the administrator. I demand a real doctor, not this quota fill." Her words cut deeper than the slap, the racial slurs hanging in the air like poison. I'd heard that kind of talk before, whispered in hallways or from patients who thought I couldn't hear, but never screamed out loud like this. It framed me instantly as unqualified, and I saw the doubt flicker in a few colleagues' eyes, people I'd worked with for years. I wanted to shout back, but my hands were busy with the resuscitation, and I wasn't turning this recess into a debate. Instead, I kept my hands on Tyler, adjusting the IV line. "We need to monitor for shock," I said to the resident beside me, ignoring the storm around us. Karen pushed closer again, shoving the nurse who'd tried to hold her back. "Did you hear me? She's going to kill my boy. Look at her, lazy and entitled, thinking she belongs here." The slur hit like another blow, and I felt my stomach twist with the familiar pain of being reduced to my skin color, no matter how many degrees I had. Mike the guard finally put a hand on her arm. "Ma'am, that's enough. You're causing a disturbance, and we can't have that in here." But he hesitated to pull her away fully, glancing at me as if waiting for me to say something. I didn't. I couldn't risk escalating and getting pulled off the case entirely. The administrator on duty, Ms. Hargrove, arrived then, her heels clicking sharply on the tile floor. She was a stern woman in her 50s, always prioritizing the hospital's reputation over everything else. "What's going on here?" she demanded, looking between us. Karen jumped in before I could speak. "This woman assaulted me. No, wait, she's the one botching my son's care. Fire her immediately or I'll call my lawyer and sue this place for everything it's worth. And get a real doctor, a white one who knows what they're doing." The racial demand was blatant now, and I saw Hargrove's eyes widen slightly. But she didn't call her out on it. I stood there, my heart racing, feeling the weight of every eye in the ER on me. Years of this subtle racism being passed over for leads on cases, having my diagnoses questioned more than my white colleagues, and now it was out in the open, damaging my reputation in real time. Whispers started among the staff. "Did she really slap Dr. Thompson? Karen's threatening a lawsuit, admin will cave." I noted it all, the witnesses, the security cameras blinking overhead, capturing every second. That footage could be my lifeline later, I thought, the first seed of retaliation planting itself in my mind. But outwardly, I stayed composed, directing the team. "Push another bolus of fluids and prep for transfusion if needed," I said, my voice cutting through the noise. Hargrove turned to me, her expression neutral but her words clipped. "Doctor Thompson, once the patient's stable, step aside for a moment." I shook my head slightly. "Miss Hargrove, I'm the only trauma surgeon on call right now, and City General treats patients up to 16 as PDs for trauma cases. Tyler needs me." But Karen interrupted again, yelling, "See? She's defiant. Fire her now." The admin hesitated, then nodded to the guards. "Escort Ms. Wilkins to the waiting area and take her statement there." Mike led Karen away, but not before she shot me a triumphant glare. "You'll be out on the street by morning, you incompetent bitch," she hissed. Low enough that only I heard. As they moved her, I focused back on Tyler, but the damage was done. Patients in nearby beds were staring, one even muttering something about troublemakers. My internal pain intensified, the repeated discrimination I'd faced, from med school professors doubting my abilities to hospital boards, dragging their feet on my promotions boiling up inside. I'd sacrificed family time, sleep, everything to prove myself. And now this woman was trying to erase it all with her bias, but I wouldn't let her see me break. Tyler's pressure finally ticked up with the bolus. Dr. Patel, the trauma attending, took the lead at the bedside, and I gave a rapid handoff before Hargrove pulled me aside. I handed off the immediate care to the resident under Dr. Patel's supervision, making sure my notes were logged in the system. "Keep me updated," I told him, stepping back as Hargrove pulled me aside. In the small office off the ER, Hargrove closed the door. "Aisha, this is serious. She's demanding your firing and threatening legal action." I nodded, rubbing my cheek. "I know. But I didn't do anything wrong. She slapped me." Hargrove sighed. "We'll review the footage, but for now, you're on standby. Don't engage with her." It was a soft way of saying I was sidelined. My reputation already tarnished among the staff who'd witnessed it. Emotions surged, anger at the injustice, frustration at the system's hesitation to back me. But that seed grew. I'd note every detail, every witness name, for when I decided to push back. The next hour dragged as I waited, hearing updates on Tyler through the door. He was stable for now, but surgery loomed if the bleeding didn't stop. Karen's yells echoed from the waiting area, still demanding my head. I sat there, composing myself, the pain of years of fighting racism making this feel like the breaking point. But I wouldn't defend myself yet, not until I had more leverage. Instead, I texted my lawyer friend discreetly, just a heads up. The conflict had begun, and though I felt the isolation deepening, I knew this wasn't the end. I sat in that small office off the ER. The door closed, but the sounds of the hospital still filtering through, beeps, footsteps, distant voices calling out orders. My cheek throbbed where Karen had slapped me, a constant reminder of the humiliation that had just unfolded in front of everyone. Hargrove paced a little, her phone in hand, glancing at me every few seconds like I was a problem she had to solve quickly. "Aisha, I've got to handle this carefully," she said, her voice low and urgent. "That woman out there is already on the phone with her lawyer, ranting about incompetence and assault. She's threatening to go public if we don't act fast." I nodded, trying to keep my breathing steady, but inside the anger was building like a storm. Years of putting up with this kind of crap, being the only black surgeon in the department, always having to prove myself twice as hard, and now this? "What does that mean for me?" I asked, my tone even though my hands were clenched in my lap. Hargrove stopped pacing and looked at me directly. "It means we're suspending you temporarily, pending an investigation. We can't have you in the ER right now, not with her making these claims. It's protocol to protect the hospital." The words hit me like a gut punch, stripping away the last bit of control I had. Suspended? For doing my job? I stood up slowly, feeling the room spin a little from the shock. "Miss Hargrove, Tyler's condition is critical. The CT results should be back any minute, and if there's active bleeding, he needs surgery. I'm the only one here with the experience for that kind of pediatric trauma case. City General's policy treats up to 16 as PDs, and Dr. Patel isn't cleared for it." She shook her head, already typing on her phone. "We'll call in someone from Mercy Hospital if needed. For now, you need to hand over your badge and go home. This is just until we sort it out, probably a day or two." I handed over my ID badge, my fingers numb as I did it, watching her tuck it into her pocket like it was nothing. The isolation hit hard then, realizing I was being pushed out despite everything I'd given to this place. As I walked out of the office, I caught glimpses of colleagues in the hallway, nurses I'd trained, residents I'd mentored, whispering behind their hands but not saying a word to me. One of them, Sarah, a young nurse I'd always been friendly with, averted her eyes when I passed. "Hey, Sarah," I said quietly, hoping for some support. She mumbled something about being busy and hurried away, leaving me standing there alone. Out in the waiting area, Karen was still there, her phone pressed to her ear, smirking as she saw me emerge without my badge. "Yes, that's right," she said loudly into the phone, making sure I could hear. "They finally got rid of that incompetent black nurse pretending to be a doctor. My poor Tyler almost died because of her. I'm posting about this online. People need to know how these hospitals hire unqualified people just to fill quotas." Her words echoed in my ears, the racism blatant and unchecked, amplifying the injustice until it felt like a weight on my chest. I wanted to confront her, to tell her I was the surgeon who could save her son. But protocol kept me silent. I couldn't engage. I stepped outside the hospital doors into the cool evening air, my scrubs feeling like a costume now that I was sidelined. My phone buzzed almost immediately, notifications popping up from social media. Karen had already posted a rant on Facebook about the lazy, entitled nurse who'd assaulted her and nearly killed her son, complete with hashtags like "Nar hospital negligence" and "affirmative action fail." Comments were flooding in, some supportive of her, others questioning, but the damage was spreading fast. I scrolled through them, my heart sinking as I saw a few from people I knew peripherally, former patients, even a distant colleague, liking her post without knowing the full story. Back at my apartment, I collapsed onto the couch, the silence deafening after the chaos of the ER. The emotional trauma hit full force then, tears finally coming as I thought about how far I'd come, from med school where professors had doubted me, to residency where I'd been overlooked for opportunities, to finally making it as a surgeon only to have it all threatened by one biased woman. "Why me?" I whispered to myself, rubbing my eyes. But even in that low moment, my goal shifted. I needed to gather proof, starting with my credentials and the security footage. I pulled out my laptop, logging into my work email remotely, careful not to violate any rules, and started noting down timestamps from the shift. My phone rang then, breaking the quiet. It was Dr. Patel, the attending who'd taken over. "Aisha, what the hell happened? Hargrove just told me you're suspended." His voice was concerned, a rare show of support in this mess. I explained quickly, my voice cracking a bit. "Karen slapped me, called me slurs, and now she's online ruining my name. Tyler's scans, did they come back?" He sighed. "Yeah, internal bleeding confirmed. We're prepping for OR, but Mercy's surgeon is an hour out. This is bullshit. You should be here." I agreed, the outrage fueling me. "Keep me posted if you can. And Patel, document everything." Hanging up, I felt the isolation deepen. No family nearby to call, no partner to lean on, just me against this storm. Karen's post had gone viral in local groups with shares and angry comments piling up, further damaging my reputation. I imagined her smirking at home, thinking she'd won, while her son fought for his life without the best care available. The injustice burned hot. The racism that had always simmered now boiling over into something that could end my career. But I wouldn't let it. I started drafting an email to the hospital's HR about discrimination, attaching my CV and certifications as proof of my qualifications. As the night wore on, I paced my living room, the pain of it all making me question everything. Colleagues who'd seen the whole thing weren't speaking up publicly, their whispers in the hall turning to silence online. "Cowards," I muttered, feeling the betrayal from the system I'd dedicated my life to. This escalation had stripped me of my role, heightened my emotional trauma, but it also sharpened my resolve. I'd gather what I needed quietly, turning this outrage into action. The seed from earlier grew stronger. I'd prove not just my innocence, but the depth of the prejudice here. The suspension hit me harder than I expected, like a door slamming shut on everything I'd built over the years. I drove home in a daze, the city lights blurring through the windshield as tears stung my eyes. My apartment felt colder than usual when I walked in, the silence wrapping around me like a heavy blanket. I dropped my keys on the counter and sank into the couch, pulling my knees up to my chest. How had it come to this? One slap, one entitled woman's rant, and suddenly I was out. Locked out of the hospital system, my email access revoked, my patients handed off to whoever was available. I only managed to log in briefly before being locked out, grabbing what notes I could. My phone kept buzzing, notifications piling up like accusations. I picked it up, my hands shaking, and opened the social media app. Karen's post had exploded over 1,000 shares already, her words twisting the truth into something ugly. This black nurse at City General slapped me when I questioned her incompetence. She almost killed my son with her laziness. Hospitals are hiring these people just for diversity points. Boycott them. The comments were a nightmare. People I'd never met calling me names, questioning my credentials, even threatening to report me to the medical board. She looks like she doesn't belong there, one said. Probably got her degree from some online scam, another chimed in. I scrolled further, my stomach churning. A few colleagues had liked the post, people I thought were on my side, or at least neutral. Sarah, the nurse who'd avoided me earlier, had commented, "This is shocking if true." If true, she'd been there, seen the whole thing. I felt a wave of betrayal wash over me, hot and bitter. I'd mentored her through tough shifts, covered for her mistakes, and now this. I tried calling her, my fingers fumbling on the screen. The phone rang twice before going to voicemail. "Sarah, it's Aisha." "What the hell? You know what happened? Why are you liking that post?" No callback came, just more silence. Then the official notification came in from the hospital's medical staff office, formal and cold. "Dr. Thompson, due to the ongoing investigation into the incident, your privileges are suspended effective immediately. Please do not attempt to access patient records or return to the premises until notified." I stared at the screen, my heart pounding. Suspended privileges, that meant I couldn't operate or work at City General, and the stain on my record could complicate credentialing elsewhere. My career, the thing I'd sacrificed everything for, was hanging by a thread. No more surgeries, no more saving lives. Just me sitting here alone while Tyler was touch and go in the OR without my expertise, where any delay could cost him. I paced the living room, trying to breathe through the panic. My mind raced back to all the times I'd been overlooked because of my skin. The promotions that went to less qualified white doctors. The patients who'd requested someone else without saying why. But this was worse. This was public, viral humiliation. I checked Twitter. Karen had cross-posted there too, with a photo of the ER entrance for good measure. "Avoid this place if you value your life. Their diversity hires are dangerous." Hashtags like "Nacher fire the nurse" and "Nosh hospital fail" were trending locally. And strangers were tagging me in threats. "You should be in jail, not a hospital," one messaged directly. The isolation crushed me then, heavier than ever. My family was back in Atlanta, too far to drop everything and come help. I'd moved here for the job, leaving friends behind. And now who did I have? I called my lawyer friend, the one I'd texted earlier, Lena, who'd gone through law school with me. "Aisha, oh my God, I saw the post," she answered right away, her voice full of concern. "Are you okay? This is defamation, straight up." "I'm not okay," I admitted, my voice breaking for the first time. "They suspended me, Lena. I can't work, can't even log in to check on my patients. That woman's son needs surgery, and I'm the best one for it. But they kicked me out because of her lies." Lena paused, then said softly, "This sounds like discrimination on top of assault. We can fight it, but it'll take time. Stay off social media. Don't respond." I hung up feeling a little less alone, but the weight didn't lift. Time? My reputation was crumbling by the minute. As the night dragged on, I tried to eat something, but the food tasted like ash. More notifications, local online outlets picking up the story now, running quick posts about hospital altercation gone viral. One junior producer even called my phone asking for a statement. "Dr. Thompson, is it true you assaulted a patient's mother? Care to comment on the racism allegations?" I hung up, without a word, my hands trembling. Racism allegations? She was the one spewing slurs, and now I was the villain. I curled up in bed, staring at the ceiling, the humiliation burning through me like fire. Everything I'd worked for, nights studying while working 2 jobs, residency where I was the only black woman in my class, climbing the ladder despite the doubts, was slipping away. Isolated, stripped of my rights to practice, facing potential career ruin from one biased outburst. The pain peaked there, alone in the dark, tears streaming down my face. Why did I have to fight so hard just to be seen as equal? The outrage built, but right then, It was just raw hurt, making me question if I'd ever get back up. Dr. Patel texted late. Mercy's surgeon arrived, but it's touch and go with Tyler. Hang in there, Aisha. This isn't right. I didn't reply, too exhausted. Karen had won this round, her entitlement and prejudice pushing me to the bottom. No job, no support, just me against a world that seemed ready to believe her over me. The emotional trauma wrapped around my chest, making it hard to breathe. I'd lost everything in a single afternoon, and the isolation felt absolute. No one standing up for me publicly, no quick fix in sight. The tears kept coming that night, soaking my pillow as I lay there in the dark, my mind spinning with all the what-ifs and whys. Why did Karen get to slap me and walk away with her entitlement intact? Why did the hospital side with her so quickly, suspending me like I was the problem? I felt broken, like every battle I'd fought against racism in medicine had been for nothing. But then, around 2 a.m., something shifted inside me, a spark of anger that burned through the hurt. I sat up, wiping my face with the back of my hand, and grabbed my phone again. No more crying, Aisha, I told myself. You've been through worse, and you're not going down without a fight. I decided right then to play it smart, to act weak and stay silent publicly for now, letting Karen think she'd won while I built my case quietly. Responding online would just fuel her fire, make me look defensive. Instead, I opened my contacts and called Lena back, even though it was late. Lena, sorry to wake you, but I need your help now, I said when she picked up, her voice groggy but alert. What do you need? She asked, no hesitation. Advice on hospital discrimination policies. Can you pull up any precedents for assault on staff and racial bias claims? We talked for half an hour, her outlining steps to file a formal complaint with the EEOC and the state's medical board. Document everything, Aisha, she said. Emails, texts, that viral post. It's all evidence. Hanging up, I felt a bit of the weight lift, like I wasn't completely alone anymore. Lena was on my side, and that gave me the push to keep going. I pulled out my laptop, reviewing the hospital's own policies I'd saved from orientation years ago. Sections on workplace violence and anti-discrimination that clearly stated staff assaults required, immediate police involvement, not suspension of the victim. Why hadn't Hargrove followed that? I jotted notes, my hands steady now, the humiliation turning into fuel, but I needed more, something specific to turn this around. My phone buzzed with another text from Dr. Patel. Aisha, update, Tyler's out of surgery, stable but critical. The Mercy guy did okay, but it was close. Call me if you need to talk. I stared at the message, then dialed him without thinking. Patel, thanks for the update, I said when he answered. How bad was it? He sighed, his voice tired from the long night. Ruptured spleen, internal bleeding, he needed a specialist. The guy from Mercy is good, but you're the one with the expertise in these pediatric trauma cases, especially with the rare vascular complication he had. No one else here is certified for that technique you pioneered. His words hit me like a lifeline, the first crucial clue snapping into place. Tyler had needed my specific skills, the minimally invasive procedure I'd developed during my fellowship at Johns Hopkins, the one that reduced recovery time for kids with similar injuries. Only a handful of surgeons in the state could do it, and I was the only one at City General. Patel, does the chart note that? I asked, my mind racing. Yeah, it's all documented. Your initial assessment flagged it. And we referenced your protocol in the OR notes. I thanked him, promising to buy him coffee when this was over, and hung up feeling empowered for the first time since the slap. This was it, the leverage I needed. Karen's son was alive because of the groundwork I'd laid, even if I wasn't in the room. If she pushed for my permanent firing, the hospital would have to admit they needed me back, especially if Tyler had complications. I started drafting an email to HR, attaching screenshots of Karen's posts and linking to the hospital policy violations, but I held off sending it. Play weak, gather more, I reminded myself. Emotions surged from the deep pain of isolation to a budding determination, like I was shifting from victim to someone with a plan. I stood up, pacing the room again, but this time with purpose. The betrayal from Sarah and the others still stung, but Patel's support reduced the loneliness a little. I texted Lena the new info about Tyler's surgery. This could be key, proof of my value. She replied quickly, absolutely, let's build on that. For the first time, I saw a path forward, turning my rare expertise into a weapon against the injustice. The racism that had knocked me down was still there, but now I had a way to fight back quietly. Starting with this clue, As dawn broke, I made coffee, sitting at the kitchen table with my notes spread out. No more wallowing. I'd contact the union rep in the morning. Review any security footage accessed through legal channels. The pain hadn't vanished, but it was transforming into strength, planting the seeds of strategy amid the hurt. I wasn't just enduring anymore, I was awakening to the fight. With the coffee brewing in the kitchen, I sat back down at my table. My notes from the night scattered in front of me like pieces of a puzzle I was finally ready to put together. The sun was just coming up, casting a pale light through the windows. But I felt more awake than I had in hours. Patel's info about Tyler's surgery and my protocol being used in the OR was a solid start. It proved my value even if they wouldn't admit it yet. But I needed more. Something undeniable to show the hospital's mishandling and Karen's pattern of behavior. I opened my laptop again, careful not to log into the hospital system since my access was revoked, and started searching public records instead. First, I pulled up the state's court records website, typing in Karen Wilkins' name just to see if anything came up. Nothing directly, but then I thought about her complaints. She had that entitled vibe, like she'd done this before. Lena, can you check for any public lawsuits or complaints against hospitals involving a Karen Wilkins? I texted her, attaching a quick description. She replied almost immediately, on it. Give me 20 minutes. I'll check my firm's legal database. While I waited, I reviewed the hospital policies again, highlighting the section on staff assaults. Report immediately to security and file an incident. Report with law enforcement involvement when warranted. Hargrove had skipped that entirely, probably to avoid bad press. My phone dinged with Lena's response, a link to a court database. Found something. She's sued 2 other hospitals in the last 5 years for negligent care, both times alleging incompetence by minority staff. One case settled out of court, the other dismissed for lack of evidence. Pattern of bias clear as day. I clicked the link, reading through the summaries. In one, she'd accused a Latino doctor of botching her husband's procedure, using similar language about quotas and unqualified hires. In the other, it was an Asian nurse she claimed was lazy. My blood boiled reading it. This wasn't just a one-off panic. Karen had a history of weaponizing her prejudice against people, like me. I saved the files, adding them to my growing folder of evidence. This shifted things. If I could show the hospital that Karen was a serial complainer with racist undertones, it would undermine her credibility. But I needed something from inside City General. I called Patel again, keeping my voice low even though I was alone. Patel, I hate to ask, but can you pull up any admin emails about my suspension? Discreetly? Don't risk your job. He hesitated on the line. Aisha, this could get me in trouble, but yeah, I owe you for covering my shifts last month. Hold on, I heard typing in the background, then a soft curse. Got it. Hargrove emailed the board saying the suspension was precautionary to reduce risk exposure and maintain stability pending review. She notes no full review yet. I can't forward it, too risky, but I can quote the non-sensitive parts carefully. He added, being cautious. It says, Doctor, Thompson's expertise is irreplaceable, but we must prioritize de-escalation pending investigation. There it was, admission that they knew I was essential but caved to Karen anyway. Combined with the preserved security footage I knew existed, Patel confirmed it was flagged for retention. This was turning the balance in my favor. Karen had no idea I was digging, probably still celebrating her victory. I imagined her right then, maybe at the hospital bedside with Tyler, boasting to her friends about how she'd put that woman in her place. From her social media, which I checked without commenting, she was still posting updates. My brave boy is recovering, no thanks to that incompetent staff. Justice served. Comments cheered her on, but a few questioned her story now, cracks starting to show. She remained overconfident, replying to supporters with hearts and thanks, unaware that the tide was shifting. Her pattern of bias, the hasty suspension email, the footage, it was all coming together, turning her betrayal into my leverage. But I kept it quiet, not tipping my hand. I emailed Lena the new info. Add this to the file. Hospital admitted hasty action. Also, can you send a preservation letter to the hospital to force them to retain that email? She called. Back right away. This is gold, Aisha. With Karen's history, we can argue systemic failure to protect you from discrimination. I'll draft a demand letter to the hospital, reinstate you, or face a lawsuit. We brainstormed for a bit, her excitement matching my growing determination. Don't send anything yet, I told her. I want to gather more, make it airtight. She agreed, promising to research similar cases. As the morning wore on, I felt the pain from yesterday easing a little, replaced by a focused energy. The racism that had fueled Karen's attack was now exposed in her past complaints, and the hospital's own words damned them for not backing me. I printed out the emails and court summaries, redacting all patient information before organizing them into a binder for when I'd need them. Patel texted again, "Footage is secure, no one's touched it. Let me know if you need a witness statement." His support meant the world, chipping away at the isolation I'd felt. Karen, meanwhile, kept posting, her overconfidence shining through in every update. "Heading home soon, hospital finally listening after I raised hell," she wrote with a selfie outside Tyler's room. She thought she'd won, that her threats had sealed my fate, but she didn't know about the evidence piling up. The balance was shifting, my meticulous collection turning the tables without her suspecting a thing. The injustice still burned, but now it was driving me forward piece by piece. I took a break to shower, letting the hot water wash away some of the exhaustion. Back at the table, I added notes on witnesses. Sarah might crack if pressured, but for now, I'd focus on the hard proof. Lena sent over a template for my HR complaint, and I started filling it in, citing the policies and evidence. This was no longer just about clearing my name. It was about exposing the system that let this happen. Karen's entitlement had blinded her, but my pain from years of bias was making me sharper, ready to use it all against her. By midday, I had enough in my binder to start testing the waters without showing my full hand. Lena had drafted that preservation letter and sent it off to the hospital's legal department, demanding they retain all emails, footage, and records related to the incident. It was a quiet move, but it would make Hargrove sweat a little, knowing someone was watching. I didn't want to go big yet. I needed to shake Karen's confidence first, make her doubt if she'd really won. So I decided on a small strike, filing a police report for assault on a medical professional, which Lena handled through her office to keep my hands clean. She submitted it electronically, no PHI involved. Just the facts of the incident as a matter of public record. I paced while waiting, my heart pounding but steady. "This is just the beginning," I muttered to myself as Lena confirmed the report number. The outlet was a small online one, the kind that loved viral hospital drama, and I knew they'd bite once it hit public records. Sure enough, within an hour, my phone buzzed with a Google alert. They'd published a short piece. "Viral hospital altercation. Was the incompetent nurse actually a victim of assault?" It cited the newly filed police report and a request for comment to the hospital, questioning racial bias in the complaints. No names yet, but it linked back to Karen's post, turning the spotlight on her actions. Karen's social media lit up almost immediately. I refreshed her page, seeing her respond to the article in the comments. "This is fake news. That woman was the aggressor. She nearly killed my son," she typed furiously, but her usual supporters were quieter now, a few even asking, "Wait, did you slap her? That's not okay." I could picture her at home or the hospital, her face turning red as she scrolled through the backlash. It wasn't a knockout blow, but it planted distrust. Her inner circle of online cheerleaders starting to distance themselves, one commenting, "If there's video, we need to see it before judging." She replied with more denials, but the smugness was gone, replaced by defensive rants. I called Lena to check in. "Did you see the article?" I asked, keeping my voice low even in my empty apartment. "Yeah, good that the police report went public. Keeps everything above board," she said firmly. No chuckling. "It shakes her without exposing you." The preservation letter hit their inbox too. I got a receipt. They'll be scrambling now. We talked strategy for a few minutes, her suggesting I monitor for any deletions on Karen's end. "She's deleting comments already," I said, watching in real time. "Good, that shows panic." Hanging up, I felt a small rush of satisfaction, the first since this nightmare started. This strike was easing my humiliation just a tad, proving I could hit back without going all in. Patel texted me an update from inside. "Hargrove's in meetings all morning. Word is the police report has risk management involved. Footage is still flagged. No one's deleting it." I thanked him, adding his witness offer to my notes. It felt good having allies, chipping away at the loneliness that had gripped me yesterday. But I stayed focused, no celebrating yet. Karen was still overconfident in her posts, but the cracks were there. Her friends privately messaging her maybe, fearing association with a racist incident gone public. I imagined her pacing her living room, phone in hand, yelling at her lawyer or whoever she had on speed dial. How did this get out? I thought we had it handled, she might say, her voice shaking for the first time. From her updates, she was doubling down. Don't believe the lies, I'm the victim here. But the public backlash was building, with shares of the article questioning her story. It tested the waters perfectly. No full reveal of my evidence, just enough to make her inner circle waver, friends unfollowing quietly perhaps, or family members advising her to lay low. Emotions ran high as I watched it unfold, my pain from the racism fueling every click. The slap, the slurs, the suspension. It all came rushing back, but now with a purpose. I wasn't just a victim anymore. This small counterblow was my way of reclaiming some dignity. Bit by bit, Lena called back with more. I've got the demand letter ready if you want to escalate soon, she said. But yeah, let's gather a bit more. I agreed, hanging up and refreshing Karen's page again. She was still posting, but the tone had shifted. Fewer hearts, more explanations. The balance was tipping, and she didn't even know it was me pulling the strings. As the afternoon dragged on, I stepped away from the computer to make lunch. But my mind stayed on the plan. The article had gone semi-viral in local groups, with people tagging the hospital and demanding answers. If a doctor was assaulted, why suspend her? One comment read. Karen responded less now, her overconfidence cracking under the pressure. It was satisfying, this first taste of revenge, planting seeds of doubt without exposing my hand. The goal was clear. Build momentum, ease my isolation with these wins, and prepare for the bigger strikes ahead. I sat back down, archiving a screenshot of the article in my binder, redacting names of bystanders. Patel sent one more text. Tyler's improving, your protocol saved the day. It reminded me why I fought, not just for me, but for the work I loved. Karen's betrayal had tried to strip that away, but this counterblow was bringing it back, piece by piece. The injustice still stung, but now I had control, testing her defenses before the real storm hit. The satisfaction from that police report and the article didn't last long. By evening, things took a nasty turn that had me questioning if I'd pushed too hard too soon. My phone rang with an unknown number, and I picked up cautiously. Dr. Thompson, this is from the State Medical Board, the voice said, formal and cold. We've received a formal complaint accusing you of assaulting a patient's mother in retaliation during the incident at City General. We're initiating an investigation, and your suspension will extend until further notice. I froze, my grip tightening on the phone. What? Who filed this? The rep wouldn't say, but I knew it had Karen written all over it, twisting the story to make me the aggressor. I hung up and immediately called Lena. They just notified me the medical board's involved now, I said, my voice shaking a bit. Karen must have filed it, accusing me of assault. Lena sighed on the other end. Damn, that's her striking back. I'll request the complaint details, but this escalates things. She's probably pressuring witnesses too. We talked quickly, her advising me to stay calm while she drafted a response. Don't worry, Aisha, we have the police report on our side, but this could drag out your suspension. I paced the apartment after hanging up, the isolation creeping back in like a fog. Just when I thought I had momentum, this hit, making it feel like I was losing ground again. Patel texted me shortly after. Word is Karen's lawyer contacted some staff, asking them to clarify statements, hinting at lawsuits if they don't back her version. I replied, asking if anyone was caving. A couple might, like Sarah, she's scared, he said. But I'm holding firm. I thanked him, but the news stung. Karen was intensifying the sabotage, twisting arms to alter what happened. I checked her social media, and sure enough, she'd started deleting posts, scrubbing her rants about the incompetent nurse to destroy any evidence of her bias. Smart move, I muttered, but it made my stomach twist. She was covering her tracks while painting me as the villain. Then came the email from her lawyer, forwarded through the hospital since they had my contact. Dr. Thompson, my client, miss. Wilkins intends to pursue a personal lawsuit against you for emotional distress and defamation. It read, cease any further actions or face immediate legal consequences. I stared at the screen, the threats hitting hard. She was issuing them directly now, trying to scare me into silence. This is bullshit, I said aloud to the empty room, rubbing my temples. Lena called back when I forwarded it to her. Classic intimidation tactic, she said. We'll counter with our demand letter soon, but this buys her time. We strategized for a minute, her voice steady while mine wavered. It feels like I'm about to lose everything again, I admitted. Hang in there, this is her desperation showing, Lena replied before we hung up. I sat on the couch, the weight of it all pressing down, heightening the injustice until I could barely breathe. Years of fighting bias, and now this woman was using the system against me, extending my suspension and tarnishing my name further. Colleagues who'd been silent before were probably whispering more now, fearing association with a troubled doctor. I imagined Karen smirking at her lawyer's office, thinking she'd crushed me for good. "File whatever you want," she'd say, her voice dripping with entitlement. "That woman won't touch my son again." But even as the fear spiked, making me doubt my plan, I noted it all in my binder. The complaint, the threats, her deletions. It appeared I was on the brink of another loss, the suspension dragging on indefinitely. Emotions surged as the night wore on, tension coiling tight in my chest like a spring ready to snap. The slap replayed in my mind, her slurs echoing, fueling the outrage but also the dread. What if the board believed her? I called Patel one more time. "Any updates on Tyler?" I asked, needing something positive. "He's stable, but if complications arise, they'll need you," he said quietly. "Hargrove knows it too. Risk management's reviewing everything now." I thanked him and hung up, the conversation easing the isolation of Fraction, but not enough. Karen's strike back had me reeling, her lawyer's threats looming like a storm cloud. I tried to eat dinner, but the food sat heavy, my mind racing through worst-case scenarios. Permanent license issues, ruined reputation. Lena texted, "Got the complaint. She's accusing you of provoking the incident and retaliating verbally." I replied, asking if witnesses were mentioned. "She's pressuring them to say you were aggressive first," she said. It was a low blow, destroying potential support by intimidating the staff. I felt the setback deep, like I was back at rock bottom, the audience's fear mirroring mine. Would this end my career for good? But I wouldn't break yet. I added the new details to my notes, redacting carefully. Karen thought she had me cornered, deleting more posts as I watched her page. "No evidence, no problem," she'd probably tell herself, overconfident in her escalation. The injustice burned hotter, spiking the tension, but it also sharpened my resolve amid the dread. This was her desperate push, and though it heightened my isolation, I knew my evidence was still safe, waiting for the right moment. The next morning hit me like a freight train. My phone buzzing nonstop with updates that pulled me right back into the fight. Lena called first, her voice sharp and ready. "Aisha, we've got it all lined up." The police report, Karen's lawsuit history, the preserved footage, and Hargrove's email quotes. "I just sent the demand letter to the hospital. Reinstate you immediately or face a discrimination lawsuit." I sat up in bed, rubbing the sleep from my eyes, feeling that spark ignite again, despite the dread from last night. "What about the board complaint?" I asked, my heart racing. "We're countering it today with your evidence package, your CV, the chart notes on Tyler, witness statements from Patel. It's airtight." We went over the plan, deciding on a risk management and medical staff leadership meeting as the stage for the confrontation, where I'd lay it all out before admins, Karen and anyone else they dragged in. I got dressed quickly, choosing my sharpest suit instead of scrubs, something that screamed authority and wouldn't let them forget who I really was. The humiliation from the slap still lingered, a dull ache in my cheek, but it fueled me now, turning into a quiet fire as I drove to the precinct to pick up my report confirmation. "This will show them," I muttered to myself, gripping the wheel. Lena met me there, her briefcase full of the binder I'd built, redacted docs, screenshots of Karen's deleted posts, everything organized like a weapon. "We're requesting the meeting this afternoon," she said as we walked out. "Tyler's case gives us urgency. If he needs follow-up, you're the only one." The police report number, combined with the PR crisis from the article, the legal hold, and patient safety concerns for Tyler's continuity of care, justified the emergency session. I nodded, the plan solidifying in my mind, no more hiding. I'd expose the racism and injustice right in their faces. Patel texted as I headed home. "Leadership scheduling an emergency meeting at 2 p.m. Hargrove's looping in Karen. Footage is ready if they pull it up." I replied with thanks, my hands steady now, the isolation fading as allies stepped up. Back at the apartment, I reviewed everything one last time, practicing my words in the mirror. "You slapped me, called me slurs, and got me suspended because of your bias," I'd say, calm but cutting. "But I'm the surgeon who saved your son, using my protocol, my expertise." The thought of her face when she realized twisted something satisfying inside me. The pain from years of being dismissed as just a nurse because of my skin pushing me forward. Lena arrived soon after, going over the agenda. We'll start with the assault, then the discrimination, hit them with the evidence chain, she said. No emotions, just facts. I agreed, but inside the rage simmered, ready to boil over at the right moment. We drove to City General together, the familiar building looming like a battlefield. Legal had issued a written authorization for my entry, so security checked us in without issues. The preservation letter had them on edge. Hargrove met us in the lobby, her face tight. Dr. Thompson, this complainant meeting is to address your concerns in a closed session, she said stiffly, leading us to the conference room. Karen was already there, sitting at the table with her lawyer, smirking when she saw me. You have some nerve showing up here, she spat, crossing her arms. After what you did to my boy? Her lawyer nodded, papers in hand. We're prepared to escalate if needed. I met her eyes without flinching, taking my seat across from her, Lena beside me. The leadership filed in 5 admins, including the chief of staff who'd always undervalued me. Let's begin, Hargrove said, her voice neutral but wary. I started slow, laying out the incident step by step. On the day in question, miss. Wilkins assaulted me in the ER, assuming I was a nurse due to my race, I said, my voice steady. She slapped me, used racial slurs, and demanded my firing. Karen interrupted. Lies. You were incompetent. You almost killed Tyler. Her lawyer shushed her, but I continued. The security footage, which you've preserved, shows otherwise. Hargrove shifted uncomfortably as Lena projected the stills, blurred for privacy, but clear enough to show the slap. This violates hospital policy on staff assaults, Lena added, citing the sections. And Ms. Wilkins has a history, lawsuits against minority staff at other hospitals. I slid the court summaries across the table, watching Karen's face pale. One settled, one dismissed, but the pattern is there, bias against people like me. The room tensed, whispers among the leadership. Karen's lawyer jumped in. Irrelevant, my client was under duress. But I wasn't done. Then there's the hasty suspension, I said, quoting Hargrove's email from Patel's contemporaneous notes. Precautionary to reduce risk exposure, you admitted no full review, just caving to her threats. Hargrove's eyes widened. That was internal, Lena cut in. Preserved via legal hold and will demand production. Dr. Thompson's expertise? Irreplaceable, as you wrote. I leaned forward, locking eyes with Karen. Your son, Tyler? He survived because of my initial assessment and protocol, the one I pioneered for pediatric trauma. The mercy surgeon followed it to the letter. Karen's smirk faded, her hands clenching. That's not true, you're lying. But the chief nodded slowly. The charts confirm it. Emotions boiled as I revealed more, the police report. The viral post-deletions raising spoliation concerns, with my archived screenshots and timestamps as proof. You tried to ruin me because I'm black and you assumed I didn't belong, I said, my voice rising just enough. But I'm the only surgeon here qualified for Tyler's potential complications, Karen's lawyer whispered to her, but she shook him off, face red. This is a setup. I'll sue all of you, the leadership murmured, one saying, we need to review this footage now. In this closed session, they pulled it up on the screen with identifiers removed, faces blurred, and no patient details visible. The room silent as it played, the slap clear. My professionalism evident. Karen stared, horror dawning as whispers turned against her. That's assault, Hargrove muttered, glancing at me with regret. I stood, taking full control. Reinstate my privileges, correct the record, cooperate with the medical board by providing footage and facts so the complaint collapses. Or face the lawsuit, Lena said, sliding the demand letter over. The chief looked at Karen. Ms. Wilkins, your actions have consequences. She sputtered, but the power had shifted. I'd arranged this confrontation perfectly. My evidence undeniable. The pain from her racism transformed into strength. The audience, well, the leadership, now seeing the truth. We'll deliberate, Hargrove said, but I knew we'd won this setup. Karen met my eyes, fear replacing her entitlement for the first time. The climax was here, suspense thick as they adjourned briefly, leaving us waiting for the final blow. The boardroom door opened after what felt like an eternity, though it was probably only 20 minutes, and Hargrove walked back in with the chief of staff and the others trailing behind. Their faces were serious, but I could see the shift, the way they avoided looking directly at Karen, how the chief nodded slightly to Lena before sitting down. We've reviewed the evidence presented, Hargrove said, her voice steady but with a hint of defeat. The footage clearly shows an assault by Ms. Wilkins on Dr. Thompson, and the hospital's response was inadequate under our policies. Karen jumped up from her chair, her face twisted in anger. This is outrageous. She's the one who started it. You can't believe her lies. Her lawyer tried to pull her back down, whispering urgently, but she shoved him away. I demand you fire her now, or my lawsuit will bury this place. I sat there, my hands folded on the table, watching it all unfold like I'd planned. The humiliation from that slap in the ER still burned inside me. But now it was turning into something else, victory maybe, or just the sweet taste of justice after years of biting my tongue through every microaggression and doubt. The chief cleared his throat. Ms. Wilkins, the evidence doesn't support your claims. Dr. Thompson's initial assessment and protocol were crucial to your son's survival. The charts confirm it, and the Mercy surgeon has already attested to following her guidelines. Karen's eyes widened, her mouth opening and closing like she couldn't find the words. No, that's not possible. She's just a nurse. She finally spat, but even her lawyer looked defeated, gathering his papers quietly. Hargrove turned to me then, her expression apologetic for the first time. Dr. Thompson, we're reinstating your privileges effective immediately. The hospital will cooperate fully with the medical board, providing all footage and records to ensure the complaint against you is dismissed. We'll also issue an official apology and review our discrimination policies to prevent this in the future. I nodded, keeping my voice calm. And what about the assault? Lena jumped in before they could respond. We'll expect your support in pressing charges if needed, and a public statement correcting the record. The chief agreed quickly. Of course, Ms. Wilkins' actions were unacceptable, and we'll be banning her from the premises, except for necessary visits with her son. Karen slammed her hand on the table. You can't do this. I'll sue every one of you. My boy needs the best care, not this woman's incompetence. That's when I stood up, meeting her eyes directly. Your boy is alive because of me, Karen. I pioneered the technique that stopped his bleeding without full removal of the spleen. It's in the OR notes, documented step by step. If complications arise, like infection or clotting, I'm the only one here qualified to handle it without risking his life further. The room went silent, Karen's face draining of color as the reality hit her. Her lawyer muttered something about withdrawing the complaints to avoid escalation, but she just stared at me, the entitlement crumbling. You're the surgeon? She whispered, her voice breaking. I didn't answer, just let it sink in. The woman she'd slapped, called slurs, and tried to destroy was the one who'd saved her son from the start. The chief spoke up again. Miss Wilkins, you'll need to issue a public apology on your social media, retracting your posts and acknowledging the assault. Failure to do so will result in us pursuing legal action for defamation. Karen's shoulders slumped, her lawyer nodding reluctantly. Fine, she muttered, pulling out her phone with shaking hands. I'll do it. We watched as she typed, deleting the last of her rants and posting, I was wrong about Dr. Thompson. She's a skilled surgeon who helped save my son. I apologize for my actions. Comments flooded in immediately, backlash against her now. People calling out her racism and entitlement. Her reputation was shattered, friends unfollowing. Her online circle turning on her like she'd turned on me. Hargrove stood then, addressing me formally. Dr. Thompson, welcome back. We'll have your badge ready in the lobby, and we're assigning you to Tyler's follow-up care if needed. I nodded, gathering my things with Lena. Thank you. Let's make sure this doesn't happen to anyone else. As we walked out, Karen stayed seated, her head down, whispering to her lawyer about dropping everything to avoid more trouble. The board members shook my hand one by one, muttering apologies, but I didn't linger. I had patients waiting, lives to save. Back in the ER that afternoon, I clipped on my badge, the weight of it familiar and right after days of feeling stripped bare. Nurses nodded to me as I passed, one saying quietly, Glad you're back, Doc. We missed you. I checked on Tyler first, reviewing his charts, stable, no immediate complications, but I'd monitor closely. Walking through the halls, scrubs on, stethoscope around my neck, I felt that renewed dignity wash over me, like shedding a heavy coat. The isolation from before was gone, replaced by quiet respect from colleagues who'd seen the truth unfold. At home that night, I sat on the couch with a glass of wine, reflecting on it all. The pain from Karen's slap, the slurs, the suspension, it had pushed me to my limit, but I'd come out stronger, reclaiming what was mine. Prejudice like hers blinds people, destroys lives. But truth and skill, they always prevail in the end. I smiled to myself, ready for whatever came next. No more proving myself twice as hard. I'd earned my place, and no one could take that away again. When faced with injustice, the most powerful thing isn't to yell, but to remain calm. Acknowledge the facts, seek allies, and demand that the system do the right thing. Do you have a rule for protecting yourself when treated unfairly? Comment one sentence. I'll compile it into a checklist for everyone. Thank you from the bottom of my heart for staying with me through this painful journey. On your screen now are 2 more real-life stories I think you'll love. Please subscribe so we never lose each other. See you in the next story, my dear friend. With all my love and respect.